Well, hello, everyone. Good afternoon and welcome to the Startup Atlanta webinar. My name is Noah Downer. I'm the Senior Vice President of Economic Development at Invest Atlanta, and I'm your host for today. I'm incredibly excited for this next series of the Scale in ATL webinar series. This quarter's focus is on accessing alternative capital, and we're joined today by three amazing panelists who will share information on the resources available from their organizations on this topic, as well as provide some insights and guidance to companies who are on their own capital journey. Before we go into today's discussion, I did want to share a little bit more information about Startup Atlanta. Startup Atlanta is a community nonprofit that's focused on three things. It's connecting, growing, and promoting our local Atlanta ecosystem. We have a variety of resources that we offer to the community, including the Atlanta Startup Ecosystem Guide. This is an amazing online digital list of all the resources that are available to entrepreneurs in the Metro Atlanta region. We include a list of support organizations, accelerator programs, investors, events, and many more. We also recently launched our free community calendar at startupatlanta.com/events. If you're a community member, this is a fantastic resource where you're able to search, including by your neighborhood or topic of interest, to help you find events that can provide you information, resources, and connections that you need to be successful. So if you're an organization who hosts events, you can directly submit your events to that community calendar. It's open to everyone to participate. Additionally, we're really excited about Atlanta Tech Week, which will be hosted by Render ATL from May 31st to June 2nd at the America's Mart. Please check out atl.tech to learn more about the featured speakers, events, and RSVP information. Additionally, as a part of Atlanta Tech Week, Startup Atlanta is excited to host our Female Founders in Innovation dinner in partnership with Atlanta Tech Week and Render ATL. We invite all female founders, technologists, and startup champions to join us in celebrating entrepreneurship and innovation. Please register at startupatlanta.com/events for that May 31st event at the clubhouse at Tech Square Atlanta Social Club. I'm also incredibly thankful for the Startup Atlanta sponsors. As you know, Startup Atlanta is a nonprofit predominantly run by volunteers. We're able to support our programs and events like today through the support of the ones that are listed here on the screen. So thank you so much. Now, let's get into the content and the discussion of the why we are here today. So as you can see, we're really focused on that accessing alternative capital. And we know that all startups need capital to start, grow, and scale their businesses. But how do you get started without a lot of money in the bank? Or how do you scale without giving up too much of your business? There's a lot of focus historically in venture funding as the primary form for capital, but that's not the only way to fund your business. So today we'll be talking about accessing alternative forms of capital like grants, loans, and other incentives that are available for startups and small businesses. And I'm really excited because we have three experts who will provide information on the opportunities, resources, and programs that you can tap into to help your businesses grow. You'll also see that we'll place in the chat a little bit later on today a list of the resources. So obviously we encourage you to take notes and to visit each of our websites, but we'll also hand out that sheet of paper where you can review all the tools that we're going to talk. Before we actually move into that, I did want to go over a few housekeeping items for you all today. First of all, you'll see that this session is being recorded. So with that, we're able to post this online, both on our website as well as on our YouTube channel. So if you want to give it a listen again or share these insights with other folks in your network, they will be available there. Also, you'll see that at the bottom that you have a Q&A little box. We encourage you all to put your questions in so that we can know what's top of mind for you and ultimately get you the answers that you need today. In terms of that question and answer, we're actually saving the last 10 or 15 minutes of the presentation for that. But we do encourage you throughout the presentation to go ahead and include your questions. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. I'd like to invite our first panelist to join us today. I'd like to invite Stephanie Bolden. Stephanie is the Senior Business Development Officer for Lift Fund, where she establishes partnerships and creates a portfolio of inspiring business owners across the Metro Atlanta area. Lift Fund itself is a local nonprofit that's really focused on making capital more accessible to small business owners to create wealth for themselves. So with that, I will go on mute. I'll stop sharing my screen and we'll welcome Stephanie. Stephanie, welcome.
Good morning. Thank you, Noah. I'm excited to be here today. All right, I'm going to actually share my screen with you guys so you can see a little bit about Lift Fund. Okay, wait 1 second. All right, well, Lift Fund is a nonprofit CDFI, and I'm just trying to make sure I get this into presentation mode. And let me know if you guys can see it. Thumbs up. Great.
Not quite in presentation mode, but we can still see it just fine.
Oh, okay. Well, Lift Fund is a nonprofit CDFI, which is a community development financial institution. And there are several of these around the country, but Lift Fund specifically focuses on businesses, on providing access to capital for businesses that are focused with minority businesses, startups, and those that may have some credit challenges. We're there to meet those business owners' needs. Okay. Next slide. So as mentioned, my name is Stephanie Bolden. I'm the Senior Business Development Officer here, and I cover the state of Georgia, and my contact information is displayed here. Now, we have several different products that we offer our small business owners, such as veteran loans, working capital, startup, expansion loans, and especially those loans for equipment purchases and SBA loans. Now, I'm going to focus a little bit on our veteran loans because right now we do have a 0% interest loan up to $20,000 for veterans, and you can obtain this as a startup. You do need to have a DD-214 showing that you are honorarily discharged to receive that benefit. So what types of businesses do we support? So Lift Fund provides loans to a multiple array of businesses. The ones that we do not would be easier for me to tell you. And those would be businesses that engage in adult entertainment, those that that provide cannabis or the CBD. We're not able to assist those businesses at this time. And nor are we able to engage in businesses that do the renting of their vehicles like the Toro, or if you rent properties and then sublease these, we cannot assist those businesses. But overall, everything else we can provide assistance to.
Hey, Stephanie, I know I'm not sure you're sharing that second slide on your screen. I think we're still seeing the CDFI information. I know you got some really great information in there.
All right, let's see if I can do that again. Stop share and reshare. Share screen. All right,
Great.
can you see it now?
Yes, you're now on the second. Perfect. Thank you so much.
Okay, great. All right, there you go. Is it the full screen?
It's not, but I think it'll work.
Okay. Well, and as mentioned, so those are some of the loan products right here again. And we're talking about the types of businesses that we do not service. And as mentioned, we do service a wide variety of businesses with those limitations in adult entertainment and things like that. So our borrower profile. So the majority of our loans are done to minority businesses. 36% are to startup and 33 are to women and 10% are to veterans. So we really need your help as business owners to share the information so that we can reach those women and veteran businesses out there to let them know that there is capital available to them. And as you see, we have been around since 1994, predominantly in Texas, but in 2009, we expanded outside of the state. And in 2016, we entered Georgia. And our focus is to really reach those small business owners. And as a nonprofit, we rely a lot on our partners and you as business owners to support each other and share the word. So we do have some special products that we are offering, at least some great rates that we offer, like this real estate loan for business owners. These are for existing businesses. We're able to invest or provide funding for investors that have been operating for 2 years or more and have been successful in property flipping. So imagine that if you're a landlord or you do property flipping, if you are engaged in the if the properties are in providing housing for low to moderate income area individuals, or just to help revitalize the community, we can provide loans up to 500,000 for that. And that can be personal residence. If you have duplexes, we can provide funding for that. And then the HEAT loan product, that's a 3% fixed rate up to 100,000. And that is for individuals that may be trying to upgrade their commercial property. That would be if they're putting on solar panels, updating their commercial kitchen for Energy Star equipment. We can give you up to a 3% loan fixed up to 100,000. Okay, so what are the qualifications? Let's talk about that. So an individual must be at least 21 years old to benefit from our program. They must be located in our market, on our footprint, our 15 state, but here specifically Georgia. They must be a resident of Georgia for at least 6 months in order to, we have to be able to verify their residency for at least 6 months in order to qualify. They must have a bank account. Because this is how we would deposit the funds into that bank account and draft from that same bank account. And we need to be able to verify the income traceability. All right, for a startup specifically, they must have an outside revenue source, meaning that they must have a way to make their payment that we can verify consistent income coming in to their account other than the business income. So they must have either employment, could be a spouse that's going to be on the loan, can be their source of revenue. But anything that we can see on a regular basis going into their business account can be used as that outside revenue source. And they must have a business plan. And when I say business plan, it has to be one that they had some input in creating, not just one that they just got from someone to help. I want to know that that business owner has an understanding of what they're going to be doing, and you be able to utilize that business plan. If there's no input in it, they're not going to be able to use that successfully. So those are the things that I wanted to make sure that you understand, that you had a little background as to what LiftFund offers. And you have my contact information there. So please take a picture. All right.
Stephanie, really amazing information. Love to see the low interest loans, right? 0% loan for veterans. You're referencing a 3% fixed rate as well. Love also the focus on fixed assets or real assets. We know that real estate is an amazing way to drive wealth generation. You mentioned some of the underwriting needs. So looking at a revenue source as well as a business plan. Is there anything in terms of guidance that you'd like to provide the startups or the small business owners as they're going through the application? Are there resources out there that you would recommend to be able to help those businesses with that business plan or with those underwriting needs?
Definitely. Lift Fund themselves has a women's business center that we can connect them with, so that if we do find that they need some additional guidance in preparing that business plan, we can provide that to them. But if they want a more in-person approach, because Lift Fund, our women's business centers are located in Texas, so it would be a virtual interaction there. But we do have local partnerships with our Small Business Development Center here in Georgia, where they can connect one-on-one with someone in person, as well as we have relationships with Operation Hope, and they can also help you with that as well. But gathering that information, yes.
Wonderful. And perhaps as well a shout out for Invest Atlanta, my organization. We also have a series of technical assistance providers. You can find them at atlinbusiness.com. This is where you can get one-on-one free coaching and assistance from consultants. You just need to be located in the city of Atlanta and have a city of Atlanta business license. But they're there to help assist you as you move forward in these applications. So wonderful news, Stephanie. Love to hear about all these resources. I think we'll invite you back for the latter portion for the Q&A. I see a number of questions already in there today, and shout out to continue to put your questions there in the webinar, rather in the chat. So thank you so much, Stephanie.
And one final thing, and we do service the entire state of Georgia, so it's not just any specific counties. We service the entire state. Just wanted to put that out there as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, now I'd like to invite our second panelist to join me today. It's Dante Miller. Dante is the Executive Director of the Village Microfund. And the Village Microfund educates and empowers Black entrepreneurs through coaching, consulting, connecting, and of course, capital. Dante, over to you. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. I appreciate the invite and appreciate all your time. But yeah, like you were saying, at the Village, we teach, we invest, and we support in local entrepreneurs, and we also create alternative financial models. So high level, what that looks like is teaching. We have a 15-week course where we go through everything from business model to branding, legal, operations. And then at the end of this, we actually surround you with a community support who are hopefully your future investors. And what's unique about, I feel like, our model is the fact that when we're teaching, we actually take that as an opportunity to do due diligence. So we don't use a lot of the traditional measures that people are talking about when it comes to finance. I feel like a lot of times when people are basing their things off of credit, those are often like lagging indicators, like indicators of what you've been through in the past and not where you're going in the future. So we try to just find out different and more creative ways to actually see a business objectively and get them the funds that they need. And in terms of investing, we dabble a bit in all three: grants, loans, and equity. The grants are more of a case-by-case basis. Like, for example, we had during COVID, we helped the city of South Fulton get out $500,000 of CARES Act money in terms of grants to different entrepreneurs in the city. We also partnered with AWBI as well as a community foundation to get out grants to different entrepreneurs in Atlanta. And we ended up giving out about $1.8 million in grants over COVID. We also offer fiscal sponsorships. So if you have a business that maybe doesn't have a 501(c), but you still have a public good facing thing, and you want to receive grant funding for it, we can partner on that as well. And then we also do loans. So we have loans that we can give directly, but we also have a relationship with Kiva as the Kiva hub in Atlanta. So those are 0% loans where you can crowdfund it amongst your people. And it's up to $15,000, and you have about 3 to 5 years to pay that back. So that's really been helpful. We also have our own crowdfunding platform called the Village Seed, which is in the process of being redeveloped, but it's coming soon. And ours is similar in the sense that you can actually raise collateral to get a credit line instead of just a loan, so you can continue to borrow over time. And then, of course, we also have our partners like ACE, and who sometimes we have programs where we do character-based loans, where they'll essentially accept that if someone's gone through our program, then they have a lower barrier of entry for investing. And then we have our equity piece, which really comes from our attempt to create these alternative versions of finance, because our workers' equity fund is a spin on a private equity fund. And the idea is that when you buy a piece of a business, you actually sell it back to the employees, and you allow the employees to pay that back with the profit that they now have, that they now get from owning a share of the business. So in that, we do investments up to $250,000. This is our second round since the pilot that just happened about in 2021. So a lot of these things that we're trying as far as like alternative finance are things that have not been tried in this way before. So yeah, we like to be a bit more on the risky side, but also seeing like we have new tools and new technology to be able to create financial models, and there's no one actually focusing on building the models that work best for community. So we decided to take up that role.
I love the information, because you're talking about capacity building, you're talking about grants, you're talking about loans, equity, working side by side with these organizations. You just mentioned a word that was interesting. You're a little bit more risky. Could you talk a little bit about the profile of the business that you're typically supporting? Are there industry sectors that work the best for your capacity building program? It'd be helpful to understand some of those things.
Yeah, I mean, so in terms of industry, we actually pull from a lot of different industries. We tend to over-index in food, food and art businesses, and also service businesses. But we do like to have a spread of businesses that just come from across all the different sectors. And as far as the profile goes, we have our own rubric for kind of how we grade businesses. We just call it the Village rubric. We should come up with something a little bit more catchy. But we really look at things like, the team, the vision, the operations. What does the business model look like? Are all things in place legal? And what is the financial health of the business? And like I said, we do a lot of due diligence through the class. So a lot of times it's not a situation where you feel like you have to have all these things before you meet with us. It's like we will help you get to where you need to be. And yeah, let's say like there are plenty of businesses in Atlanta, like for example, Just at Honey is a business that we've worked with extensively. They are a tea shop that, is off the Beltline, and I want to say that they're one of the larger businesses. They make, they have a lot of employees, but we also work with businesses as small as, your average mom and pop shop in the West End. So we see a lot of entrepreneurs who have amazing ability and are really good at doing what they're doing and have been doing it well, but they are normally missing things on the business part. So we just help fill in the gaps.
Yeah, I love your comment earlier. Credit is a lagging indicator. It doesn't necessarily give a sense of your trajectory. As you mentioned, the vision, the business plan, the team that's around you. And so why penalize someone who has this amazing vision for a company? So what's the best way for a company to get into some of your programs, or is there an application process? I know you're at the Russell Innovation Center for entrepreneurs, but what's the best way to engage with you, Dante?
Yeah, I mean, we do have our cohort, so we have every fall and every spring. They're 15 weeks. Um, the application process, we like to think, is relatively simple. It is pretty competitive, so you do have to get in, but once you do get in, it's absolutely free course. And yeah, like you said, we're in the Russell Center, so a lot of the ways that a lot of people engage is just walk in my office. I don't know if you've ever been to the Russell Center, but we're in the Capitol Corridor and literally right across the hall from Invest Atlanta. So that is also another way. And digitally, it's like we do a lot in terms of Instagram. We have a YouTube as well, and our website, of course, our newsletter. We keep people updated through that. But yeah, I'd say the cohort is the biggest thing, is the easiest way that we kind of, put you in this process.
Love that. And I'll take personal privilege to say shout out to Invest Atlanta, Mr. Lonnie Sabor. He's actually directly behind Dante there. So Invest Atlanta also has staff at the Russell Innovation Center for Entrepreneurs, where they're talking about our individual loan programs. So there's more than 10 loan programs that Invest Atlanta offers, all low interest rates, similar to the programs that Stephanie provided today. But Dante, really love this overview. Love the insights, love your focus on breaking some of those barriers for those who have historically been out of the typical credit market. So I'll let you go for now. We'll invite you back in a little bit for the Q&A. But now I'd like to invite in Bobby Gilbert. So Bobby is the CEO of Fund Story, which is focused on improving the borrower experience by creating a more transparent, efficient, and personalized lending process. Bobby, I know you're also personally very interested in AI and how AI can move the needle for accessing capital. So can't wait to hear a little bit more about yourself, the organization, and ways to engage with you. Over to you, Bobby. And I think you're still on mute, Bobby.
Thanks, Noah. And thanks for having me. I'm really excited to chat about Fund Story. Just to give you a high level Fund Story, we set out to build the operating system for non-dilutive capital about a year ago. And ever since we started Fund Story, we've been tethered to the macro environment around fundraising. We talk to founders in and around startup community, also brick and mortars, and we learned their stories. We found out, how tough it is for founders to raise, especially last year's climate was particularly turbulent relative to 2021. And we learned a ton from the process. And just to give you a high level overview, Fund Story helps founders access and manage non-dilutive capital. Last year, we helped consummate a little over $5 million and non-dilutive capital across 3,000 startups. And we work with 35 capital partners, and we specifically focus on digital native businesses. So online businesses that have SaaS models or direct-to-consumer models. So if you're an online business looking for financing, we'd love to work with you. But to the point around AI, and to give you a little bit more background in terms of how we think about it, we built a ton of different solutions leading into our beta to get to product market fit with Fund Story. So we did a ton of customer surveys. We made some assumptions about how to bring more inefficiency to the process, or bring more efficiency to the process of raising capital. And we found that founders really didn't care about all the different tools that we put in front of them. They just cared about consummating a deal. And the fundraising process is so arduous for many founders and so inefficient. Even in the non-dilutive space, you might think that's easier than raising venture capital, but oftentimes it could be more challenging because of the higher bar in terms of diligence with credit deals. And so, we built innovative tools around managing capital. We built innovative tools around pre-qualification, but it all distilled down to the accessing a loan, right? Getting capital. And so long story short, in and around this time of the year last year, AI was sort of picking up speed. We started to, I started to, hear some rumblings about what OpenAI was doing back then. And then obviously, of course, you had ChatGPT launch in Q4 last year. And that really triggered something with our team. And it resonated across the ecosystem. Every founder I know uses ChatGPT for some internal workflow. And so I thought long and hard about, number one, that core problem that we're solving, access, right? That's the only problem that we need to focus on. And then on top of that, how can AI help mitigate the inefficiencies in the process? And so long story short, we ended up pivoting and going full 180, going 100% into AI and revamped our technology. So prior to that, we had technology for our lenders, our capital partners. We had a separate CRM for them. We had a ton of tools for those lenders. And then we also had a robust platform for founders. Prior to funding, during funding, post funding, we had tools on every stage. And we were proud about what we built, but they only cared about access. So this time around, when we decided to pivot, we said, okay, the only thing we're going to focus on is access. And the inaugural solution that we're going to launch at the end of this month, we're really excited about, is our ChatGPT plugin. And that is going to be something where founders can go to ChatGPT while they're, writing a blog post or getting some inspiration for social media. They can also install the FundStory ChatGPT plugin and ask FundStory questions about their fundraise, and we can help direct them to our capital partners or the most, optimal form of financing. Additionally, we want to automate the process of financing with AI as well. And so as founders start to become aware of FundStory, we want to onboard them into our solution, which will be an AI-powered automation tool. And the goal there is just to be simple, upload your pitch deck or integrate your bank account payment processor or accounting software and ask it, hey, I'm looking to raise, $500,000 inside of 6 months. I don't want to give up a ton of equity. What are some good alternatives for me? And we want to have, an engine that can direct founders in the most efficient way. So I believe personally, this is one of the biggest problems any startup can solve. If you can give founders access to capital, you can help them change the world.
Yeah, love the solving the access part. Bobby, we were chatting earlier. Perhaps folks here joining us today aren't as well versed in AI or in Chat GPT. What advice would you give for someone who's out, listening to you today and saying, that's all very exciting, but I don't even know where to start? What advice would you give to someone in that same space?
Thanks. So I love that question because to be honest with you, I'm a tech savvy guy and, I learned a little bit about coding, but, brought in a CTO early in my entrepreneur career. This is my second startup. But, prior to, last year, I had no real material experience in AI. I was green. And the biggest thing I'd say to anyone interested is just, act towards it, do the work, just play with it, go to ChatGPT and play with it and, see how it works. It's baby steps and you don't have to integrate AI into your whole product or pivot your entire business like I did, but interacting with the technology is the first step. And that's what I did.
Yeah, I love that. You got to, build that curiosity muscle and continue to work towards that. Is there anything else in the macro environment that you're seeing that you think would be really helpful for folks to understand about capital? No, it's also something we chatted about before.
Yeah, some interesting sort of nuggets since we last spoke, actually. I came across a tweet the other day where someone kind of gathered all the data of venture rounds closed over the last, call it, year or so. I think it was, seed deals to Series A between March 31st, 2022 and March 31st, 2023. And it looks like Atlanta, did 66 deals and a little over $250 million. And then relative to the bigger markets like New York and San Francisco, it's, it's asymmetric, right? So New York did, 3 billion, SF did 4.2 billion. And I say all that to say, like, that really encapsulates the macro environment, especially when it comes to VC, right? Obviously we're going into some really turbulent times as it relates to VC, and unfortunately the smaller markets get hit hard. Get hit even harder because of this. It's already challenging to raise venture in Atlanta, but now you kind of add that headwind to the process, and it makes it more challenging. And so, deals take longer to close, right? Diligence is much longer, it's extended. This is much different from the 2021 days where you could close deals pretty easily. And so I say all that to say, access to alternative funding is increasingly more important. If you set out to raise venture, you probably need a strategy for non-dilutive, some sort of venture alternative as well to keep things going. So if you have revenue, it's probably good to think about rev share agreements, lines of credits, loans, any sort of alternatives to extend your runway such that you're able to raise that round of venture. And so that's the one thing I will say. If you're a founder that started your business back in 2020, especially if you're raising venture capital, you want to kind of change your expectations relative to what you previously thought was sort of the status quo.
Great. Maybe the last question before I invite Dante and Stephanie back up for our Q&A portion, and just shout out, I have a number of questions in the Q&A. Look forward to answering them here shortly. And then please go ahead and continue to put them in there. But Bobby, what's the best way to engage with your organization? Say, wow, I'm that founder, I'm really inspired. I think you could really help me out. What's the best way to engage with FundStory?
You can go to fundstory.com and sign up for our waitlist, and we will give you priority access to the initial versions of our automation tools. Also, you can find us on the ChatGPT plugin marketplace when we announce that. And so really excited to interact with founders that are interested.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Bobby. Dante and Stephanie, why don't you come back off from back onto camera, and we'll transition into the Q&A portion for today. I see 4 questions in here, and maybe we'll just go through them probably like rapid fire. And I think most of you all answered the question, but are each of your programs Atlanta specific? Is it national, international? What's the target audience or scope, I guess, for each of your programs? And we'll start with ladies first and over to Stephanie.
Sure. So we are, we're in 15 states, but it won't cover the entire state of Georgia.
Awesome. Bobby, you're off mute, so we'll go to you and then over to Dante.
Yep. So we are sort of geo-agnostic, at least in the US, and plan to expand internationally, but founders from across the country can use our technology.
Yeah, and from our end, we are right now specific in Atlanta. We're very hyper local, but we do have intentions of moving into other states and going internationally as well.
Love it. Just to follow up there, Dante, is Atlanta Metro Atlanta? Is it the city of Atlanta? Is it, what does Atlanta mean?
Right, Metro Atlanta, really. But we've worked with people as far out as Augusta. So I'd say just Georgia in general.
Love it. So next question that we have here, and this is, I would assume be for Stephanie and Dante, but it's small scale developers. So those who are working in the real estate development business, for example, family housing projects, would any of your programs, would this organization be able to take advantage of any of your programs?
Yes, as that's the product that we have, that new real estate program that we have, but the individual must be established for at least 2 years, so I can verify taxes, and definitely can do the 1 to 4 unit housing, residential. And
Yes.
that's up to 500,000. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and also, yes, that is something that we'd be able to look at. I would also just be cognizant of the fact that a lot of our lending amounts are a bit smaller, so it could be better to match with one of our partners. But yes, that is something that we could work with.
Love it. Maybe let's dive a little bit deeper into technical assistance. The next question that I see here is for someone who's relatively, not relatively, but who has a holiday decorating company and wants to seek your perspective on what's the best way to get the business off the ground. So it sounds a little bit about technical assistance. Who would like to take that one?
Okay, I can go again. Well, what I like to do is to set up initial consultations with all our clients. They're free. And basically, what the client would do is just book an appointment with me, and then we'll discuss where they are and what the next step would be. It may be a referral to one of our business advisors who can help them with developing a business plan or whatever, or it may be a more one-on-one mentor relationship. But we always do that initial consultation to determine what the needs of that specific business owner is.
And Stephanie, is there something that they need to prep in order to have that meeting with you? Is there an expectation as far as what they should bring to the meeting? Anything that you could help guide this individual on?
It's good to have at least maybe like a little one-page, breakdown of what their goals are. I always advise them to check their credit first, and you can always go to annualcreditreport.com so that if there's something that we need to discuss, we'll know about it in our conversation so that they're not like, oh, I don't know what my credit is like. I don't know, they have these things ahead of time. So yeah, always good to, check that credit and just have an idea of how much they need, because that is, but that may be the point where we need to see that they need to truly do some more research. If that may be just what we discover in the call.
Yeah.
Love it. Dante, I saw you wanted to jump in as well.
Yeah, I mean, I would actually echo a bit of what she said in the sense that this initial consultation would figure out what you actually need. Because it's there's a lot of different things you could be referring to when you say get it off the ground. But we generally like to start our consultations at, I like to just do a business model canvas so I have a good idea of where your business is, and we'll just go through that on the call. And as we walk through it, naturally we'll see okay, they're good in these areas, they need some help in those areas. So we can work with them individually as that goes on. But I would say that really that's what we designed the course for. Just so we kind of go through everything, and it's yeah, there's going to be some things that you're already familiar with, but there's going to be a lot of things that sometimes you just don't know what you don't know. So if we can just introduce you to the spread of things, then we can figure out where you need help and where the pain points are, and just figure out something specifically for you.
Awesome. I see one last question in here, and I'll probably wrap it up with you all. We'll leave that for the last wrap-up question. So just one last shout out for folks to continue to put their questions here in the Q&A so that I ensure that I get to them. Bobby, maybe I'll go back to you. You had a pivot in the organization here relatively recently to take advantage of a curve that you see coming and getting out in front of it early. Would you have any advice for founders or startup businesses themselves as they're out there scaling their entity and maybe don't know what that next step is, but perhaps are thinking about that pivot itself?
Yeah, thanks for that. Pivots are hard. When we started to think through strategizing for this, we had a lot of internal kind of pushback within the team, and we had built a lot of technology leading up to this point, and the pivot was particularly hard for our engineering team because that actually meant that we had to deprecate a lot of the existing software that we built. A lot of the existing infrastructure that we built connecting lenders to borrowers had to be deprecated, and we had to temporarily shut down the platform such that we can build the AI infrastructure. And so it's tough. And the one thing I will say as it relates to a pivot into AI, I believe the future of finance, the future of many different industries. I'll go as far as to say that, on a long enough time horizon, I believe that founders will have the fiduciary obligation to manage their capital, manage their fundraise, manage, their finances with some form of AI augmentation. And so if we can get, ahead of that and provide those tools for business owners, I think it's a quality decision.
Awesome. Appreciate that. I came over to the webinar chat just to scan through to make sure I wasn't missing any questions, and came across a couple. Just continue to put it in the Q&A box. It's a little bit easier, but I'll jump in here. We have a request for each panelist to give some more detail into the amount of funding. So I heard some of that from Stephanie and Dante, but could you perhaps give us a little bit of a recap of the funding range that you generally support? And then, what are the requirements that you're wanting to see in terms of revenue? They mentioned assets as well. So perhaps the portions that drive the underwriting. Ladies first. Sorry, Dante. Over to you, Stephanie.
Sure. All right. So our range, we can start at $500 all the way up to $500,000. Our goal is to meet the business owner where they are. We know not everybody needs a large loan, so we want to have something affordable for them. But our typical loan size is around $25,000 here in Georgia. So roughly there. And as far as the question about what would they need, so we're looking, we already mentioned, we're looking at your credit. We look at TransUnion for the reporting agency. We also look at capacity. So we have to be able to verify income through bank statements and tax returns. Loans under 20,000, I'm only looking at bank statements, don't need a tax return. I'm also looking at collateral. Our loans do require collateral. Not all, it does not have to be 100% collateralized, but all of our loans do require collateral. We don't have any unsecured loans. And we're also looking at, relevant experience in the industry. We want to make sure that you have, you understand what you're getting into, even if it's volunteer experience. I need to see that or if you don't yourself, you have a manager or someone who will be there to guide you through that process. You have their resume and they're, accessible. So that's, some of the basic requirements, that we would be looking at.
So to summarize, under 20,000, bank statements only. You typically there are no unsecured loans, so you're always looking at some sort of collateral. And then need the tax returns for, I guess, over 20,000. Is that right?
Correct.
Perfect. Awesome. Dante, maybe over to you.
Yeah, so our loans can go anywhere from about 1,500 to 250,000. But on average, I'd say that most of our loans probably fall in between that $5,000 to $15,000 range. Like I said, we do have grants as well and fiscal sponsorship opportunities. So like that's more on a case by case situation. But when it comes to investment, like I said, we use the Village rubric. The rubric, we look at, like I said, everything from operations, legal, team, vision, the quality of product. And of course, we have to, verify income, but normally that's a matter of we're flexible in the ways that we can do that. We can look at bank statements, we can look at tax returns, we can also look at your accounting software. If you have accounting statements, we can look at your accounting statements. And we don't do anything as far as we don't require collateral and we don't do credit checks because some of the best entrepreneurs I know ruin their credit being entrepreneurs. So we try to be cognizant of that, but we do a fair amount of due diligence in terms of you have to be comfortable allowing us to look under the hood. But yeah, we just ultimately make sure that you have the cash flow, the free cash flow every month to be able to pay us back consistently.
Yeah, at the end of the day, you still want to make good loans, right? And you still want to put folks in, the best financial position to be able to pay back that debt and then any interest that's there. But again, these are all mostly, if not all, low interest loans.
Mhm.
Bobby, for you, is there a segment or a target for Fund Story?
Yeah, so because we sit in the middle of the transactions, we work with a numerous amount of lenders. I will say the common thing they all have is the fact that they're looking for digital businesses, online businesses. And so most of these deals are unsecured. They're really underwriting against the financial data. So if you have connections to the bank account, the payment processor and accounting software such that we can then start to make recommendations, because those are the integrations they would need to underwrite a deal. And on average, deal size can, what we've seen, range from anywhere in and around 100 grand to $500,000. And for businesses that are kind of in between the rounds of a seed and a Series A, maybe doing, call it, 20 to 25K a monthly recurring revenue. But we've seen deals get done with as little as 5,000 in monthly recurring revenue. But oftentimes we see seasonal businesses in the e-commerce space get funded, and then your traditional SaaS with recurring revenue.
Awesome. And on the Invest Atlanta side of the house, so more than 10 different loan programs. Highly encourage anyone here on the webinar to set up time with one of our 4 folks who work in the small business lending space. We're giving loans from $5,000 up to $200,000. Typically, though, the loan that we see is in between $50,000 and $100,000. Right now, 2 programs that are really focused on driving fixed assets, so real estate in particular. But would encourage you all to connect with Lonnie Sabor, Cynthia Freeman, Alicia Gadsden, or Richard Tolbert on our team. We do have requirements, but it's always a case-by-case business scenario rather. So we always encourage folks just to sit down with us. We're here to help guide and get you through the process as well. So we're coming up at the end of time. I have one last question, and then I will allow you all to close as well. So in terms of starting or acquiring and providing funding, this particular question is related to acquiring a franchise. So is the funding process any different when looking at funding a franchise as opposed to a typical startup?
I can speak on that, to say that we haven't seen any franchises come through our pipeline. I do suspect, from what I generally know, that franchise financing is a bit different, with at the diligence stage, collateral requirements, the amount of brand recognition, and obviously, franchise fees and royalties go into that kind of equation as well. So, but I will say that I have no experience helping close those deals.
Well, we do provide franchise loans. Most of our franchise deals are usually SBA franchises, but we are able to do other franchises that are not supported by SBA. It just depends on the amount that they're looking for, the borrower's looking for. And the process is typically the same, same as our regular loans as far as requirements.
Yeah, and from our perspective, we haven't had a franchise come through the cohort either. So I'd say that, considering the extra expenses that will go into it, I'm not completely certain that we'd be the best one to fill that, but I think it would also be on a case-by-case situation. I think we just have to sit down with the business and figure out if it made sense for both of us on that end.
Awesome. Well, maybe one last question. Any last wisdom that you'd like to share with the folks on the webinar today? And then just to close what's the best way to get into contact with you?
Okay, well, just want to encourage your business owners to do your research. You know, you make sure that you take your time when you're seeking funding. Don't rush into a deal and don't wait until the last minute to seek funding. You want to make sure that you're doing your due diligence and understanding what fees are going to be associated with taking on any funding for your business. Oh,
Yeah.
and how to reach me. I'm sorry. Yeah. Stephanie Bolden. My number is 470-344-8396. That's my direct line. 470-344-8396. You can also email me at sbolden, BOLDEN, at liftfund.com. And that's liftfund.com. All right, thank you.
Yeah, man. And I guess advice is normally like apply for the funding before you're desperate for it. Yeah, because oftentimes it's like, yeah, people wait to apply for funding until like they have absolutely no other options. And that just makes the whole process a lot more stressful than it needs to be. So I guess I would just say that. And in terms of contacting villagemicrofund.com, you have a newsletter that we send out. So definitely sign up for the newsletter. We also have an Instagram that is very active. That's Village Microfund. And my email is just Dante@villagemicrofund.com.
Yeah, I would echo everything Dante and Stephanie said around, being proactive when it comes to the raise. Across the board, I've talked to many founders from different industries and different sizes and shapes. And the number one thing every founder hates is raising money. And if you can kind of mitigate that friction, either being proactive or using technology to mitigate the inefficiencies in the process, the better. So you can reach me at fundstory.com, sign up for the waitlist, or reach out to me via email, bobby@fundstory.com.
Well, panelists, Bobby, Dante, Stephanie, incredibly insightful. Seeing a couple of comments here in the chat that was incredibly well received. You have our LinkedIn there as well. Also, the resource document that we mentioned, the link is in the chat as well. I did want to say we're at the top of the hour. I know we could keep on going for a lot more, but thank you all for joining us today. Be on the lookout for this on the Startup Atlanta website, as well as on our YouTube channel. Please engage with us there. Ask us questions there. We'll get you the responses that you need. Really want to thank as well our sponsors who made this possible, as well as the Startup Atlanta team, who at the end of the day execute and help make this possible. Thank you so much. Be on the lookout. We'll have our next quarterly webinar series. It was great to spend time with you all. Have a wonderful rest of the week and enjoy the upcoming holiday. Take care, y'all. Thank you.
Thank you.